Will the Canon EOS R1 have an 85 megapixel sensor and be announced at the Paris Olympics in 2024? Details coming up, but first I encourage you to subscribe and choose all notifications so you're kept informed on the latest camera gear, news, and rumors. According to the new camera, a source was speaking to a Canon Explorer of Light and said this: "I spoke to a friend of mine at Canon while I was in Japan, and the R1 is shooting at 85 megapixels at 24 frames per second RAW with over 15 stops of dynamic range." Wow, 85 megapixels sounds incredible, right? Do you recall some of the first rumors coming out saying it would have 45 megapixels, then 50, and then Canon rumors latest saying I think it would have something like 60 megapixels? Really exciting, right? Well, don't get too excited because today Canon rumors said this: "All these things sound terrific, but we really don't think these sorts of things would be known right now outside the labs and meeting rooms of Canon." But this isn't the first time we heard rumors of an 85 megapixel sensor on the Canon EOS R1. On March the 4th, 2021, Canon Watch had this to say about the Canon EOS R1. 85 megapixel global shutter CMOS imaging sensor, full frame. However, it could also shoot at 20 frames per second, but 40 frames per second at 21 megapixels and provide unlimited continuous shooting. It would use the quad pixel autofocus technology, have 15.5 stops of dynamic range, an ISO range of 160 to 1.6 million, 5-axis IBIS, and look at this LCD here, 9.33 million pixels, 1280 nits, 10-bit WCG RGB OLED touchscreen, and the EVF, that looks like it's taken right out of a Sony, 9.44 million dots, 120 hertz, and the price, around $8,500. Sounds intriguing, right? Sounds interesting, and I covered this when it came out, and I really didn't place a lot of credit in this. And the reason why? Well, this wasn't the first time we heard this either. On August the 1st, 2019, F-Stoppers ran this: "Is Canon about to announce an 85 megapixel full-frame mirrorless camera?" August the 1st of 2019. We didn't even know much about the 1DX Mark III at this point, and they started speculating about 85 megapixels for a full-frame mirrorless camera, Canon's new flagship camera. Before you get excited about potentially having an 85 megapixel sensor in the Canon EOS R1, what we need to do is remember who this camera is made for, and it's made for people who want the best of the best when it comes to stills photography, when shooting fast-moving subjects, whether it be motorsports or some sort of fashion work where you want to click really quickly to make sure you get that shot. It's a fast action camera. That's its primary mission. And yes, it's due to be the master of everything, but we don't know what the scope of the master of everything's going to be. The 1 Series camera has always been the master of everything within its still hybrid line. It always has better stills capabilities and video capabilities than any other 5 Series camera below it or every other camera below that. So being the master of everything isn't a surprise, but 85 megapixels? Yeah, I think that's still a bit of a stretch, although Mark Job would disagree with me on this. All I'm trying to say right now is there's nothing new under the sun here. We've been hearing about an 85 megapixel sensor for the Canon EOS R1 going back to summer of 2021. But Canon rumors did recently say this: "The latest information says that Canon's new flagship will be the new Resolution King, as well as have a big focus on 8K video production, tying it with Cinema OS, although it won't get the C variant. With Sony, Nikon, and Leica topping out at around 60 megapixels for stills, that will put the Canon north of that if the reports are true." Oh yeah, and regarding the date for the Canon EOS R1, we were supposed to get an announcement here this year, right around now. Well, actually back in October. That hasn't happened. It was then pushed into 2023 with an announcement sometime, well, starting to get leaked around March, springtime, and a full-blown release right around the 3rd quarter. Well, according to Canon rumors, we're now hearing this from a reliable source. A good source reached out last week and told us that the Canon EOS R1 may not see the light of day until the 2024 Summer Games in Paris, France. If this is the case, we expect Canon to start talking about the camera some months before the games. And that makes a lot of sense. I agree with Canon rumors here. The Canon EOS R1 is going to be a big deal. The R5 was leaked in January of 2020, about 5-6 months before the announcement. And shortly after that, by about 3 to 4 weeks, Canon started slowly leaking things out, first with a development announcement. Then Canon Australia came out with some information. Then at NAB, they gave more information all the way up until the announcement on July, I believe, the 9th. Unfortunately, all the information we have flying around today about 85 megapixels isn't really reliable and trustworthy, and it goes all the way back to Well, August of 2021, and anything that goes back that far, well, at that point, Canon probably didn't even have the final specs of the Canon EOS R1 down yet. So I'm really doubting the 85 megapixels, and we really don't know anything about the specifications on this camera other than it's going to be better than the R5, the R3, and every other Canon camera that's come out, and most likely better than the Nikon Z9 and the Sony Alpha 1. After all, if it doesn't come out until 2024, it will have had 4 years on the 1DX Mark III, about 3 years on the Sony Alpha 1, and about 2 years on the Nikon Z9. That's a lot of time that Canon would have taken, and it makes more sense of why the R3 came out as a stopgap measure until that time. Okay, let's do a quick recap. Canon isn't going to set the specifications for the Canon EOS R1 4 years before the announcement. 85 megapixels, that rumor started in August of 2021. And then we kept hearing about it year after year saying, hey, it's going to have 85 megapixels, quad pixel autofocus, and other capabilities until here we are today where we're hearing that same rumor being peddled with no validation. So where is the information? Where are the specs? We don't know. But the one thing that has me worried about this quote, saying a good source is telling them that it isn't going to happen until the Paris Olympics. We don't have any leaked specifications at this point, nothing that's been validated, nothing coming from good known sources. And when it comes to the Canon EOS R1, the first place I do expect to see and hear announcements is Canon Rumors because, well, when it comes to all things Canon, Canon Rumors has been very accurate over the last couple of years. Well, even going back further than the last couple of years, but since I started covering this channel, they nailed the 1DX Mark III, they nailed the Canon EOS R5 6 months before they launch. They leaked the specifications that were very detailed, some 12 to 16 specifications that proved to be true. So no leaked specifications from the R1, at least, well, pointing to maybe having at least 60 megapixels, but that it's going to be coming at the Paris Olympics in 2024. That's really all we have at this point. So it started off to be a really exciting video about a camera that shoots 85 megapixels at 24 frames per second raw. Looks like that might not be the case and that we might have to wait a little longer until 2024. What do you think about these rumored specifications? Do you think it's going to shoot around 85 megapixels? Or do you think it's going to be something more, well, traditional, like 24 megapixels that we saw in the Canon EOS R3? And as far as timeline, do you think we're really going to have to wait until the Paris Summer Olympics in 2024? If you want to know the latest specifications on the Canon EOS R1, don't want to miss a thing, go ahead and subscribe, but make sure you choose all notifications. By choosing all notifications, as soon as I publish a new video like this one here, you'll get notified by YouTube in that little alert icon, saving you from having to scrub all the Twitter feeds, RSS feeds, all your favorite websites, and YouTube channels. When you're in a rush, come here because I cover all the major camera news and rumors from all the major camera brands and models. That's it for now. Thank you so much for watching. Have yourself a good day and a good weekend.